Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Raggio. I'm a senior fellow at Foundation for Defense of Democracies and editor of FDD's Long War Journal. And this is Generation Jihad, covers all things global war on terror, what used to be called the global war on terror, and what we now call the Long War. It's been a pretty hectic last 5 days. I think this is our third podcast we're going to be releasing. And of course, it's all going to be focused on the conflict between Israel and Hamas and company after Hamas's deadly and horrific invasion of southern Israel and its a barbaric slaughter of Israeli civilians. So much to discuss. Tracking this issue, it's a moving target. And of course, to discuss this, I have again Joe Trusman. He is a research analyst at Foundation for Defense of Democracies, as well as a contributor to the Long War Journal. Welcome back, Joe. I hope you're getting some sleep.
Hey, thanks, Bill. Appreciate you having me on here once again. Not getting enough sleep, but hey, I'm here and doing as much work as I can.
Yeah, well, that's what they pay us for. Hopefully things will start easing up soon. But yeah, this is just we're 5 days into this, Joe, and I'm still shocked by what I've seen, by the audacity and the dare I say the precision that this attack was carried out with, and really Israel's failure to detect and repel the attack. And I'm still coming to grips with this. The Israeli military, got its bearing. It seems to have reestablished control of numerous towns that were contested or lost in the south. But what are your thoughts on this? 5 days in, Joe. How do you feel about what's happened so far?
Right, yeah, it's pretty. It's yeah. I've said it already. Unprecedented, for sure. Not only on the scale, not only between like Israel and Hamas and just the Palestinian Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but just in general, the state of Israel and its history. It's just unbelievable what's happened. But yeah, we're 5 days in, and the IDF is still finding terrorists inside of Israeli territory and locating them and eliminating them. For example, I just before we went on, I saw this bulletin by the IDF that a number of terrorists were spotted in a vehicle near kibbutz or near near an Israeli community of Nir Am, which is close to the Gaza border, and an IDF tank responded and killed and destroyed the vehicle that was carrying the terrorists. So, I mean, I've seen there's been reports in the media that the Israelis have secured the the Israeli communities or settlements, but it's quite clear that there's still terrorists running around. You got to remember too, though, that let's say I don't know if there's an exact number. We probably won't find out till later on, but I'm sure it's over 1,000. But terrorists came into Israel, right? So
It has to be, given what they breached 29 locations,
something like that. Yeah,
they overran bases and police stations, took control of I don't know how many villages and kibbutz. You just start putting that pen to paper, and you have to come over 1,000. I wouldn't be shocked if it was 1,500 to 2,000 that crossed that border.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then it's as far as the deaths of terrorists, in previous conflicts, that I've covered, usually maybe dozens. Usually, 2014, I can't remember exactly. It was over 100. But this is going to be in the thousands of terrorists killed, especially if there's a ground war. I keep saying if there's a ground war, things like that. I've said it in previous podcasts, but it's just looking imminent right now. I think the IDF is just trying to set up. It's mustering its forces basically, right? So to get ready for this invasion. However, the thing is, you got to think about it. Like if Hamas, since Hamas planned a lot of this, or planned this rather with other groups, of course, and and we could talk later about this, about Iran and Hezbollah, with Iran and Hezbollah. They prepared for what eventually would happen if they were successful, right? And they knew that the Israeli Defense Force would launch a ground offensive. So I have no doubt in my mind they are prepared for a ground invasion. Okay, so they have tunnels that they likely have the ambushes set up. There's an extensive tunnel system underneath Gaza. So the IDF is going to have to be very clever here, right? They're going to have to, when they enter Gaza, and how they do it to avoid these possible ambushes, which is possible. It's possible they can avoid it, right? Especially once they go into these densely packed neighborhoods like Khan Yunis or Gaza City, or it just depends where they go, of course. So, there's a lot that can happen, but as of now, no ground invasion. But I expect it's imminent. I can't tell you if it's going to be tomorrow or the next day, but I expect for it to happen in the near future.
Yeah, I concur with you, Joe. I think we're watching the Israeli Air Force right now is preparing the battlefield. They're targeting bunkers, command centers. If they're getting information on, probably rockets, and actually no doubt, rockets and mortar positions, things of that nature. But you are 100% correct. The Hamas and company, and I'm just going to call it Hamas now for, just for shorthand, so we don't have to continue, saying Hamas and allies or whatever. But they are what we watched, a very innovative, a very creative attack to breach that border, to fan out through Israel, through southern Israel, to attack military bases, to destroy armored vehicles. They have something. It's very likely they have something up their sleeve inside. And as you noted, fighting or in an urban environment is difficult enough as is. And I have a feeling Hamas is. I have no doubt they've been planning for this. This is another reason why the IDF is taking its time. It's preparing the battlefield. It's mustering its forces, and it's trying to gain intelligence to see what Hamas may have up its sleeve. And again, as you noted, just going in the city itself is dangerous. Is going to make it a bloody fight. Does Hamas have a large stockpile of anti-tank missiles or anti-armored missiles? Who are they going to employ? IEDs and EFPs? We could just sit here, we could speculate all day long, but the Israeli military has to think creatively here as far as what Hamas may be able to do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In 2014, for example, Israel, the IDF went into Gaza. There was a ground invasion, and they suffered casualties. Soldiers were abducted. I'm sorry, through tunnels. Another really, I would say, there was a lot of IEDs, right, planted under the ground. So, and these aren't like the IEDs in the West Bank, for example. In the West Bank, you have like pipe bombs, gas canisters, the ones that you attach to your barbecue, for example, fire extinguishers packed with gunpowder. That's what you see in the West Bank. That's what Hamas uses there in Islamic Jihad. In Gaza, completely different story. Completely different story. I wouldn't. I'm not sure I would compare it to stuff like you saw in Iraq, but as far as the sophistication and the level of lethality, it's the lethality of it, but or how lethal it is, but it's definitely a huge problem, and I think that's definitely a concern of the IDF when it goes in there.
Yeah, if they start deploying Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, grade IEDs, that can be a very major problem. I suspect that might be what's coming here, but I hope not. I hope I'm really wrong about that. But there's just a lot. I would not want to be planning this operation. I would not want to have to go into this into Gaza. And Joe, you had said if they go here, if they go there. My perspective on that is, I think the IDF has to go everywhere. I think they have to root it out. They cannot allow Hamas to squeeze into other areas and survive to fight another day. And that's going to take a significant amount of Israeli troops. If that is their plan, it's going to take a significant amount of troops for them
absolutely.
to go in and clear that out.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And something important here too is that it's not going to take a couple of days, right?
Oh no,
It's not going to. It's not going to take a week. Yeah, this is serious. So, and like I alluded to before or mentioned before, it's the tunnel system underneath Gaza. It's pretty extensive. So I imagine they have command and control bunkers underneath in these tunnels rather, and a lot of their elite or elite fighters, commonly referred to as Nukhba units. They come out of these tunnels, so and attack IDF personnel if they're in the area. So it's going to take time, and then we can sit here all day and talk about it. Well, is the IDF going to occupy Gaza? What are they going to do? How long is this going to take? There's just a lot of questions there because it's what the IDF needs or is time, right? And I don't know if they're going to be able to get that time to reach their goals, their military goals, just because of international pressure, right? And that's always been an issue in conflicts, especially Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So we'll see.
Yeah, that time always seemed to be a month. It's somewhere around 30 days before the pressure got. I remember was it 2006, 2007, the war with Hezbollah in the north. I remember saying way back then, I said, yeah, this will be about a month. I think it was 30 days right on the nose before they succumbed to pressure to end that one. And I think this is different. I think the internal pressure is going to trump any external pressure. Just given the magnitude of the attack, of the barbarity of that attack, that was, the Israeli people should not demand anything other than the full defeat of Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and other groups. We'll see. Time will tell to see if that actually happens. It's necessary. I have one question before we turn to the north, because there seem to be a lot of developments, and like to see what that one's been really difficult for me to sort out this morning and this afternoon. But what about the possibility? Do you think that leadership and key commanders would be able to leave Gaza and enter Egypt? Are the Egyptians willing to take them in?
I'd be surprised. It's possible with some sort of political agreement, something maybe in return for hostages, like all of them. But listen, I'll tell you, there's a lot of guys, the Hamas leadership and members of other groups. But if someone were to ask me, hey Joe, who are the three main guys you think the Israelis or the IDF was going to target during this war, this operation, where they're going to go really after? And I'll tell you, it's Yahya Sinwar, who is the leader of Hamas in Gaza. There are other leaders as well, but they live in luxury abroad in Qatar, for example. But anyway, besides that, then of course there's Mohammed Deif, who is he's the leader of the so-called military wing of Hamas, the Izzeldin al-Qassam brigades, and his deputy Marwan Issa. Those are the three guys I imagine that the Israelis are really going to go after. Mohammed Deif, they've targeted Mohammed Deif on several occasions, and quite a few occasions rather, especially in 2014. They nearly got him in 2014, but he survived the targeted assassination. So, but yeah, it's definitely three guys. I'm pressed to see the Israelis letting these three men, these three leaders of Hamas out of Israel. Because listen, again, we go back to it. There was no way these guys weren't involved in this operation to massacre Israeli civilians and abduct hostages. There's no way they didn't know and they weren't involved. They have to. They of course they were involved. They're the leaders of Hamas's so-called military wing. So yeah, I think they have really big targets on their head. We can sit here and talk about other targets, other members of Hamas's leadership. There's Salah al-Aruri, who is the West Bank leader, who is definitely involved in the violence in the West Bank over the last 2 years, or actually more than that, really. And we've talked about the West Bank in previous podcasts. But yeah, I think these are the three the big fish. Okay, so I think we'll hear a lot about those names in the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, I agree. And Egypt would be hard pressed to allow them to come in. I think the fallout from them accepting leaders of that magnitude to enter Egypt, I don't think the Egyptians really want that problem. All three of them are listed by the U.S. government as specially designated global terrorists for their ties. Deif has always caught my attention. He's one of those the ghosts out there, right? I mean, this guy won't use a phone. He never said to never stay in the same place for more than a couple of days. Now think about it. I mean, he's been wounded for 14, that's 9 years, and yet is still avoiding being tracked by the Israelis. That's he's not just some guy that's walking around. If he is indeed handicapped like he's as to be described, that really narrows down the possibilities for Israeli intelligence to try and track him. And this guy involved in suicide bombings from the 1990s on. He, I believe he, isn't he the guy they said that made the Qassam rockets? Is that correct?
Something like that. Yeah, he was involved in that, I believe. So, but you know what? The interesting thing is, I hate saying this, but I wonder if he's still even in Gaza. I mean, I know it may sound funny to people, but there's ways to smuggle people out, right? So, I mean, it's possible he could have been smuggled out through, let's say, through Egypt, right? Yeah, he is handicapped as far as because due to the previous airstrikes against him, but it's possible, and because during war, especially during conflict, Hamas leadership just hides. Like most of them, especially the top ones, like the ones that we mentioned, they hide, of course. And so yeah, but it would not surprise me if he was out and didn't even live in Gaza anymore. But I mean, that's just speculation. I don't have anything to.
No, it's certainly possible, Joe. It's it's worth discussing. He could be in the West Bank. He could be in Jordan. He could be in Syria. He could be in Lebanon. I would doubt he's in Egypt at this point. Now, didn't he release a statement on the first day?
Oh yeah. He released a statement. He a lot of what I'm seeing, at least the conflict, the response, the rockets and the Israeli response, it's very similar to previous conflicts, especially the one in 2021. But the interesting thing in here is that in 2021 he was more active, and what I mean by that, Dave, that is, excuse me. He would publish statements regularly, and it was more a psychological type of I guess you could call it psyops.
Like a finger in the eye to the Israelis.
Yeah, exactly. He would say something along the lines of, and they would publish this on, Hamas would publish this on, let's say, like Telegram, for example, because they know that the Israelis are watching, and then everybody else is on social media watching out for statements. He would say things like at 9, or his spokesperson, they would say, they were very, and I hate saying this, but they were very good at this. They would say at 9 p.m. Tel Aviv will be bombed. All right. and then they would go through with it. Okay, and then this would be repeated over and over and over and over. So those type of statements we would hear, or in 2021 as well, right before the war or the conflict kicked off, he made a statement. He said, if the Israelis do not do this, and that, we will respond. And 3 hours later, there were rockets against Jerusalem, and that kicked off the 2021 Gaza conflict. So anyway, but I don't see that. I don't see him speaking nearly as much anymore. Actually, just the statement that you made, and I think that's it at the beginning. So I mean, it's still early, right? We're like in day 5. So, but I'm just noticing these little things, right, compared to previous conflicts. So we'll see. He may talk again, or he's just like we've been talking about, he's just hiding.
He's certainly said to be, and I have no doubt, given his history and given what he's done with the planning for previous fighting, said to be the mastermind behind this. I think he already made his statement. But yeah, maybe, and they may be looking at operational security for to limit the exposure that he has. But let's take a look at the north now, Joe. What exactly is going on? I've seen reports of drones flying. I've seen reports of rocket attacks. I've seen reports of infiltration. Give us the rundown. Tell us what exactly is happening.
Right. Well, I'll tell you this. And rightfully so. The Israeli public. Everyone is nervous. Because they don't want a second front opening on the northern border with Hezbollah. But earlier, a few hours ago, there was multiple alerts of an attack from the north, from Lebanon, from southern Lebanon. At first, initially was reported that it were drones. Then it changed to paragliders, very similar to what happened in southern Israel. And then we saw more reports of possible infiltrations into the Israeli communities in northern Israel. After time, it appears the IDF said, no, hey, false alarm. We didn't. There's no evidence that anything happened, basically. So, so what happened, right? Where did all these alerts come from? And by the way, I think I should say, just in case our listeners don't know this, there is I should say, an application, okay, that you use that you can access on your phone or your computer that gives out alerts, okay, and this is part of the home front command, Israel's home front command. So let's say a rocket is fired from Gaza, or a rocket is fired from Syria or Lebanon. An alert is sent out to the area where the rocket may land. Okay, so it's called a red alert. It's called Seva Adom in Hebrew, and so this alert came up a couple hours ago, and that there was this mass attack happening in northern Israel, specifically around Haifa. And so everybody thought, okay, yeah, something's happening. But it appears there's a false alarm. Now, what could have happened, right? So even though these red alerts are largely or rarely inaccurate or false alerts, it's happened before. I've seen it happen in southern Israel. I've seen it happen in northern Israel, but not on this scale. This was like it had a swath of large area of northern Israel, especially northwestern Israel, under alert. So it seemed legitimate, right? Especially with everything going on already. Everyone's expecting Hezbollah to do something big. So that's what happened, but thankfully, it was a false alert, right? But I can't tell you what happened exactly. But misidentifications have happened, human error as well, right? So it's possible. I don't want to get into cyber attacks and things like that because there's no evidence of it. But that's what occurred.
Yeah, very likely the fog of war and the maybe a little bit of the panic of war. Yeah, but that blew my phone up today. I'll tell you this morning, and I'm sitting there going, just be patient. Let's take a look. Let's see what's happening. You start seeing reports like this, and just hoping that the Israeli people have can get a little reprieve from this for at least I think unfortunately I think that's coming, but at least I hope they have time to prepare to leave if necessary. So
right, and I do want to quickly add that there have been actual attacks by Hezbollah against Israeli positions in the last 2 days. So I just want to mention that attacks have happened, and I think they were in response to IDF airstrikes in the previous yesterday or the day before. Forgive me, everything is like the days are being coming together. Yeah. So, but yeah, so they're responding, at least in their statements, they're saying they're responding to Israeli airstrikes against their positions, which have killed, I believe, 3 members of Hezbollah. It was yesterday or the day before. But anyway, but yeah, they've targeted the IDF positions already on several occasions in the last couple of days. They published a video this morning of a guided missile strike against a IDF position. So yeah, that is happening, but it's at I don't want to say a low level, because I mean an attack is an attack, but it's not like this mass strike that everybody thought was happening a few hours ago. So, but I think something's going to happen. I think it's going to be something with, especially when there's a ground invasion too. Especially that it'll be from Hezbollah. But again, let's remind everybody: Palestinian armed groups are in southern Lebanon, and they are operating against Israel from that area, of course, under the auspices of Hezbollah.
Absolutely, it's I expect that to happen. I think Hezbollah and company are looking for their excuse to weigh in fully. I don't think it's going to play well, but and honestly, really strange. I don't think they need that excuse because we all know what's happening, but that seems to be their playbook, and I expect it to go out that way. I certainly hope it doesn't. That's for sure. Joe, last topic. Let's talk quickly. There was recently reports, I believe it was, time compression here, but I think it was Monday, or if it not late Sunday, that Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and Hezbollah officials were bragging about planning and giving the go-ahead for Hamas and company to execute this attack. Now, the Biden administration came out late last night. I think it was through intelligence and just some unnamed officials basically saying they see no evidence of direct Iranian involvement in Hamas's attack on Israel. Now, I am highly skeptical myself of information like when information like this comes out from the administration, which has a tendency to politicize its intelligence. I hate to bring up Afghanistan in this context, but my goodness, they're telling us the Taliban is a partner in counterterrorism, and the Taliban helped defeat Al Qaeda, and Al Qaeda is no longer present in Afghanistan. This isn't contrary to just about anyone who knows anything about Afghanistan, including the United Nations Analytical Support and Sanctions and Monitoring Team, whose report over the summer detailed Al Qaeda training camps and safe houses and media center, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to rehash all that. So when I see administration, which has, been playing footsies with Iran, releasing $600 billion and those being held by South Korea, et cetera, and then all of a sudden they don't want to see Iranian ties. What are your thoughts on this issue, Joe?
Right. So listen, yeah, I'm pretty much in the same line with you. Yeah, these groups that are actively fighting Israel, or that launched the attack against in southern Israel. Some of them are Iranian proxies. They take direction from Iran. Okay, especially the big one, Islamic Jihad. That's an Iranian proxy. And there's just so much evidence out there that and again, I mentioned this in the previous podcast that, and we've even highlighted this at Long War Journal countless times. We even have a visual on it showing the evidence of this that we published back in July. So that all these armed groups surrounding Israel, there's 19, at least 19 of them, right, in Gaza, West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, some of the Iraqi groups operating in Syria, they all tied to Iran, right? They're a proxy or they receive backing from Iran, either through funds or through arms. So I'm sorry, but something like this isn't just an attack of this magnitude. Can't be pulled. I don't think it can be pulled off by Hamas alone without the help and the backing it needs from a major state sponsor like Iran, right? So, and then we're seeing also, I think it's important to note that I'm seeing a lot of, I don't know, you call it encouragement. These groups, a lot of these groups, especially the Iraqis, we published actually several articles today on Long War Journal about Iraqi groups backed by Iran, of course, that are threatening Israel. And not only are they threatening Israel, they're threatening the United States. That if the United States joins in the conflict in Israel, that these groups will attack American bases in the region. So, it's I think the evidence is all there. It's just for whatever reason, officials don't.
Like Joe, it's like they want
it.
the selfie of
Yeah.
the head of the IRGC on the
Right.
border with Gaza as the walls breached. And even then, I think they'd say, well, no, it might be a deep fake.
Right, yeah. Yeah. It just doesn't make sense.
I just don't, basic logic, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, right? That is an Iranian proxy by all definition, right? They take their marching orders. They participated in this operation. Does anyone who understands how this all works think that Islamic Jihad just go willy-nilly participates in an attack of this magnitude without some type of approval?
Right.
Just from that respect, right? Like we can go on and how all these groups are built, but like to me, I look at just that one, Hamas is receiving aid from Iran. Do you think like after an attack like this, it's going to be really limited on its external support? Do you think it would want to alienate them by doing something that they didn't approve of? It seems that using basic logic and to be a high level official in an administration, you just have to turn off your critical thinking skills, and that's what we're witnessing. I just don't know what evidence. And by the way, you talk to people in the business and they'll sit there and tell you they're just shaking their heads right now, going, I don't know where this is coming from. This isn't what we're seeing.
Right. Oh yeah. No. Absolutely completely agree with you. The data is there, and yeah, it's just this mind-boggling sometimes. I mean, some of the one group that was part of the infiltration into southern Israel. They're the Popular Resistance Committees, which has a long track record of terrorism against Israelis and Americans. They have their logo is like a carbon copy of Hezbollah's. Like their flag. I mean, I'll show you one day. You'll see.
Oh, no, be like, you don't have to, Joe. Just about every Iraqi Shia militia that takes backing from Iran has a Hezbollah derived logo. And by the way, and look, we know this from interrogations of Qais Khazali, who's the head of Asib al-Haq, which is one of the prime Iraqi militias backed by Iran. He was in U.S. custody. We interrogated him. We've seen the interrogations, and he admits that Iran had Hezbollah train and IRGC as well train these militias and create them to be analogs to Hezbollah inside of Iraq. These were we know this. This is their own words, and yet somehow we just can't seem to find the link. It just eludes me. I just don't see evidence of it. Well, okay.
I'll say one thing. Listen, the Iran doesn't give money and arms to groups just to do it. Okay, what
Right.
they're doing, they want influence. That's what they're doing. They're buying
It's
influence,
out of the
and
goodness of their heart,
yeah,
Joe.
yeah, right, exactly. So, I'm sorry, but come on, come on. So that's what's been happening in Gaza, not just for a couple of years or something. This has been going on for a long time, more than a decade. So yeah, it's just I don't know, just silly to think that way. But of course, Iran is involved. So I don't know.
It's
Maybe
the
the
opening scene in The Godfather where he does the favor for the Godfather does the favor for the Undertaker, and one day he will ask him something in return, and
Right,
that's what we're looking
exactly.
at, right?
Exactly. I mean, essentially, yes. That's unfortunately, but yeah. So, and we'll see more. I think after this is all over, uh, hopefully more people will be convinced, right, of Iranian involvement. But and more evidence will pop up, I'm sure. But for now, yeah, that's it. But again, we've a lot of us, especially here at Long War Journal, we've warned about this forever, and that of Iranian rather Iranian proxies that are in the region, and also, of course, just recently the ones that are operating on Israel's borders.
You well said, Joe. Yeah, this is those Iraqi. Look, we all know what Hezbollah is. We all know what Hamas is and Islamic Jihad and popular resistance committees. But like those Shia militias coming from Iraq, that's the one that's been warning about this and it's just fallen on deaf ears. I worry about their capacity for being force multipliers in this conflict. They're certainly talking a good game. They spent time in Syria fighting the Islamic State and fighting against Al Qaeda and fighting, against other groups inside Syria. They have a foothold there. If they really can help expand this war beyond Hezbollah, beyond the war that could come from Lebanon. One of you said something. That hopefully the facts come out and people recognize it. One of the things I've learned doing this is once people have made up their mind on this, they've closed their minds. In our industry, people refuse to accept the fact that Iran has sheltered Al Qaeda leaders and does so to this day, that Iran has provided significant aid to the Taliban. How often are we told, well, Shia and Sunni can't work together? Well, what about Hamas, Sunni Hamas and Shia Iran? And so I think people just tend to harden their attitudes, but maybe we'll get lucky this time, Joe. Maybe I can hope, right?
Yeah, we can all definitely hope, but yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath really, but
Definitely not. Joe, thanks again for joining us today. Get some rest. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers to the Israeli people and also to the Palestinian people who have to live under the yoke of Hamas and who brought this, what is to come on them. They don't deserve this. They deserve better. So all we can do is we can hope and we can pray. Joe, thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you, Bill. And thank you for having me on again. Looking forward to some more podcasts as things develop.
Oh, real soon, Joe. You know it, right? I'll catch you Friday, I think.
All right, sounds good.
Excellent, Joe. Have a great one. Thanks, everyone, for listening, for joining us for today's episode of Generation Jihad. Quick reminder, you could find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Make sure you subscribe and leave us a review, preferably a positive one, but only if we earned it. Thanks again. We'll see you all again soon.